A good Saturday morning. I'd like to share a few thoughts about the text for tomorrow. Matthew 25, verses 14 through 30. This is often called the text of the talents, or of the faithful servants, or the unfaithful servant, depending on what approach you take. The gist of the story is a master had three servants. The master is going to go away for a long time. The master entrusted a huge amount to each of the three servants, different amounts, but very large amounts. And then the servant went away, or the master went away, the master came back and wanted an accounting. The first two servants had doubled their gifts, or their trust, and the third one buried it out of fear. And the result was he had cut himself off from the master. God gives us opportunities to carry out his work. His grace overflows in our lives. What do we do with God's grace? What do we do with the gifts, the abilities, the opportunities that God gives us? I remember I was pretty young in my ministry. Some of our parishioners had taken a young lady under their wing. She was a young teenage single mom, and she had made some mistakes. She was trying to get her life put back together, and they brought her to church. First of all, they invited her to come to church. And then one day, her friend asked, about baptism. So they had to start having this conversation. Well, they said, "Pastor, would you be interested?" I said, "Sure, I'll stop over." So I stopped over, and this young lady had an older sister, and she was sitting there. And I said, "Oh, you're welcome to listen." So we talked for quite a while. We walked through baptism. We met a couple of times, talked about baptism, about how it is a gift of God, how it's one way that God's love is made very real in our lives. Didn't seem like much. At the end of the session, the elder sister looked at me and said, "I would like to be baptized." Great. Well, to make a very long story short, she was baptized along with her sister and her nephew. Time went on. She got married. They baptized their child, and they became leaders in the church. A young woman who really knew nothing about the church, was not brought up in the church, had lived kind of a wild life at times. But because of an invitation that a friend of her sister made, several lives were affected by God's grace. God gives us incredible opportunities, even the ones that seem so tiny and maybe seem so insignificant. Where God is at work, incredible things can happen. God is at work. He is at work in and through us. May the Spirit open our hearts and minds, and may our hearts and minds be open to the Spirit's guiding. Have a blessed day.